A new Afghan government composed of senior Taliban figures could be announced in the coming days. A senior leader told the BBC the government could include women, but not at the top levels. But against this backdrop, the economy of Afghanistan is close to collapse, with little immediate prospect of the new Islamist rulers gaining access to the country's foreign currency reserves held in the West. Prices of essential goods are soaring, the value of the currency is falling, and many public services are barely able to function. Here's our Afghanistan correspondent, Secunda Kamani.
The Taliban are in firm control of the country. This, a huge military parade in the southern city of Kandahar, along with a captured helicopter. But the group still hasn't established a new government, leaving many Afghans in a state of limbo. Now that the final foreign troops have left, an announcement is expected soon. The last time the group was in power in the 1990s, their regime saw public executions and women banned from working. Now they say things are different, though they admit women won't be in senior positions.
Maybe they will be in the government in the lower these things, because in every department of the government ministries, you can say almost half of the workers are women, so they can come back to their work and they can continue. But maybe in this new government which has been announced, in the top post, I mean to say in the cabinet, they may not be women.
The uncertainty about what the future will look like has seen the value of the Afghani drop and concerns about the economy rise. The World Bank and IMF are holding back from continuing support, whilst the US has frozen reserves and most local banks remain closed.
No one has any money right now. All their savings are stuck in the banks. People are just bringing small amounts of cash here to exchange, to pay for everyday living.
I needed money for groceries, but the exchange rate isn't good, so I'm going home. The currency rate just keeps on fluctuating. I pray that God brings stability to the government and these problems can be solved.
The Afghan economy has been heavily dependent on international aid. Whether or not that continues, at least when it comes to the West, is likely to be dependent on what kind of government the Taliban create, what kind of laws it enforces. Governing Afghanistan is going to prove a bigger challenge for the Taliban than taking control of it. They've been holding meetings with senior political figures like former President Hamid Karzai, but many doubt whether they're willing to really share power. Their elusive leader, Mullah Haibatullah, may well be declared leader of an Islamic emirate. These new pictures of some of the final US troops to be withdrawn from Afghanistan. The focus now is on what they've left behind. Sikandar Kamani, BBC News, Kabul.
Well, our correspondent Yogita Lamai is following developments from Mumbai.
Well, every time they speak, there are a few more details that they give out, and them now clearly saying that women will not be in high-ranking positions. I think that's a very clear message to some of the people I've been speaking to who were female members of parliament, female ministers. Many of them have fled Afghanistan, but there were a few still in the country hoping that the Taliban's promises of being committed to women's rights and allowing women to work, that those would result in them not having to sit at home. But now, yesterday I spoke to one woman, and she told me her hopes were completely dashed after this statement from their political office in Doha, in Qatar, that women won't be in high positions. So every day, I think there are new questions being raised about exactly how inclusive this government will be. We are hearing that it will be announced in the next 1 or 2 days. And, the major crisis on the ground, as, Sikandar reported as well, is a cash crisis, really, rising prices of everything, people not being able to access money. And so, on the ground, people still hoping that whatever kind of government it is, that it's announced and it's in place soon to bring some relative stability for the resumption of operations that are required for daily life.
Yeah, how much of a consideration do you think the demands of the international community will be, given that they hold the purse strings to this international aid that the country so desperately needs?
Well, you can already see from, how the Taliban have been speaking, how they've been very keen to portray a moderate image. They've been keen to show that they're different now than they were in the 90s. And, a large part of that will be because they recognize that they need, access to a lot of the funds, the international aid that was coming in, as well as the funds that the Afghan Central Bank holds. And most of those reserves are actually held outside the country. So they need access to that as well. We've also had humanitarian agencies, the UN Security General pointing out that there's a looming humanitarian catastrophe in Afghanistan. 1 in 3 people don't know where the next meal will come from. So increasingly, people who work on the ground in humanitarian agencies saying that, look, it may not be practical, whatever kind of government the Taliban makes, it may not be practical to say, let's cut off all aid together if that doesn't, if that's not the kind of government that people around the world were looking for. Because at the end of the day, it is civilians on the ground, people on the ground, without food, without shelter, without basic medicines, they're going to suffer.
Yogita Lamai there.